It was supposed to be just another quiet day on the alien planet. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm golden light over the strange, vibrant landscape. Trees with glowing blue leaves swayed gently in the breeze, and the air smelled of sweet, unfamiliar flowers. The human, Alex, had come to this world on a mission. He was a soldier, part of an intergalactic peacekeeping force, tasked with gathering information and keeping the peace between warring alien factions. But today, things were different. As he walked through the dense forest, he heard something, a sound that was out of place. It was faint, but unmistakable. The sound of someone in trouble. He stopped, his instincts kicking in. Was it a wild animal, a bandit, or perhaps something worse? He wasn't sure, but he couldn't ignore it. Following the sound, Alex pushed through the thick undergrowth until he reached a small clearing. His heart skipped a beat when he saw what was happening. A group of alien soldiers had surrounded a woman. An alien woman. She was unlike any being he'd ever seen before. Her skin was a shimmering shade of pale blue, and her long silver hair flowed like liquid light. But it wasn't her beauty that grabbed his attention. It was the fact that she was being held captive, her hands bound behind her back. Without thinking, Alex acted. He reached for his blaster and fired a few quick shots, catching the alien soldiers off guard. They scattered, cursing in their strange language. The princess, he could tell by the crown on her head, stumbled but didn't fall. Alex rushed over, pulling her to her feet and pushing her behind him for cover. "Are you okay?" Alex asked, trying to catch his breath. The princess nodded, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and gratitude. She was clearly shaken, but she didn't speak. Instead, she reached for the small dagger at her side, preparing to defend herself. "Hold on," Alex said urgently. "I'm here to help. Let's get out of here before they come back." But the princess, despite the danger, didn't move. She looked at him with a strange intensity, as if weighing him in a way he couldn't understand. Her eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, it felt as if the whole world had stopped. Then, without warning, she spoke. "You should have stayed away." Before Alex could react, the princess pulled a small device from her belt and activated it. A bright light filled the air, and before he knew it, everything went black. When Alex regained consciousness, the first thing he noticed was the cold, metallic floor beneath him. His head throbbed with pain, and his vision was blurry. He tried to move, but his wrists were bound tightly with some kind of strange rope. Panic surged in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. The princess. What had happened? The room around him was dimly lit, with walls that seemed to hum with energy. It wasn't like any prison he had seen before. The technology was advanced, far beyond anything the human military had access to. He was clearly somewhere alien, possibly aboard a spacecraft, or in a hidden base. His heart raced as he realized the true depth of the situation. He wasn't just captured by the enemy. He was held by the very princess he had saved. He looked up, hoping for some answer, and there she was, standing by the door, watching him closely. Her shimmering blue skin seemed to glow in the low light, and her silver hair framed her face like a halo. Despite her beauty, there was a coldness in her expression that sent a chill down Alex's spine. She didn't seem relieved that he was alive. She didn't seem grateful at all. "What is this?" Alex demanded, struggling against his bonds. "I saved you. I risked my life for you, and this is how you repay me." The princess didn't flinch. She simply tilted her head, studying him as if he were an insect under a microscope. "You don't understand, human," she said in a voice that was calm, yet carried an edge of danger. "You were never meant to be my savior. You were meant to be a pawn in a much larger game." Alex's mind raced. A pawn. What was she talking about? He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had acted on instinct, helping her when no one else would. Now, it felt as if all that had been part of some plan that he hadn't even been aware of. "What do you mean?" Alex asked, his voice more measured now. "I came to help you. I didn't sign up for any games. The princess walked slowly toward him, her footsteps silent on the metal floor. She knelt down, bringing her face close to his. Her eyes were deep pools of mystery, filled with something Alex couldn't quite read. "I knew you would come," she said softly, her gaze never leaving his. "And I knew that you would have the key to what I need." "The key?" Alex repeated, his confusion growing. "What key?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she straightened up, turning her back on him. "You'll learn soon enough," she said cryptically. "For now, you'll stay here. There's much more you don't know. Much more than you could possibly understand." Alex watched her, a mix of anger and uncertainty building inside him. He had saved her, and now he was trapped. But the princess had said something important. She had known he would come. This wasn't just some random encounter. It was part of her plan. The question was, why him? And what did she need from him? As the princess left the room, locking the door behind her, Alex was left with more questions than answers. He couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just become part of something much bigger than he had ever imagined. Days passed, and Alex found himself locked in the small, dimly lit room. His hands were no longer bound, but his mind was still trapped in a cage of confusion. The princess hadn't come back to explain anything further. He had tried to escape several times, but the security system was far too advanced for him to bypass. Every attempt was met with the cold, indifferent hum of the energy barriers that surrounded him. During the long hours of waiting, Alex thought back to the day he had found her, the princess, trapped by those soldiers. He had acted without thinking, charging into danger to save her. And now, here he was, imprisoned on her orders. But there was something about her that bothered him. She had looked at him as if she knew him. It wasn't just gratitude or recognition. It was something deeper, something that felt calculated. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the door to his cell opened. The princess stepped inside, her presence as commanding as ever. She didn't seem surprised to see him still alive. Her eyes, bright and sharp, locked onto his with the same intensity as before. But this time, there was something different in her expression, something softer, almost reluctant. "You've been waiting for answers," she said, her voice low and measured. She didn't ask, she knew. "And you deserve them. I owe you that much." Alex nodded, his gaze never leaving hers. "What's going on? Why did you capture me? I thought I was helping you." The princess sighed, sitting down across from him, her posture regal even in this small room. For a moment, she seemed to hesitate, as if choosing her words carefully. "Do you know the history of my people?" she asked, finally breaking the silence. "We come from a long line of rulers, powerful, respected. But we've always been at war, constantly fighting for control of our planet, our resources, and our very survival. But that's not the worst of it." Alex shook his head, intrigued despite himself. "What do you mean? What's worse than constant war?" The princess looked away, her eyes distant, lost in the memories of a time she didn't want to remember. "There's a prophecy," she said quietly. "A prophecy that says one day a human will arrive and bring peace to our world. This human will not be like the others. He will have a unique power, one that no alien can match. And when he comes, he will help us defeat our enemies and restore balance." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The words unique power echoed in his mind. You think I'm the one in the prophecy?" The princess met his gaze again, her expression unreadable. "Yes, I had no choice but to bring you here. You have the power, whether you know it or not. Your presence here is no accident. The moment you saved me, I knew you were the one I had been waiting for." Alex was silent for a long time, trying to process what she had said. He had been part of something far larger than he could have ever imagined. He was no hero. He was no savior. But somehow, he was caught in the middle of this alien war, bound by a prophecy he never asked for. "I didn't sign up for this," he muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. The princess's eyes softened just a little, but there was still a sense of finality in her tone. You didn't have to, but you are here now, and there's no going back. We need you, whether you like it or not. Alex wasn't sure whether to be angry or to accept the reality of his situation. One thing was clear: he was in far deeper than he ever expected. This part reveals more about the princess's past and the prophecy, adding depth to the story. It also continues to build the relationship between the protagonist and the princess, setting the stage for their future actions together. Alex sat in silence, absorbing the princess's words. The prophecy, the power, the weight of it all pressed down on him, heavier than any mission he had ever been given. He wasn't a chosen hero. He was just a soldier, a human in the wrong place at the wrong time. And yet here he was, caught in a galaxy-spanning war between forces he didn't fully understand. His world, the one he knew, felt so distant now. The princess, noticing his troubled silence, stood up and walked over to a small table by the corner of the room. She began fiddling with something, an odd device, humming softly in her hands. Her movements were slow and deliberate, but Alex couldn't help but notice the tension in her shoulders. It was clear that this wasn't just about saving her planet anymore. It was personal, and he was a part of it, whether he liked it or not. I didn't ask for this either, the princess said suddenly, as if reading his thoughts. I didn't ask for a prophecy to define my life, but it's there, and we have to deal with it. She paused, glancing back at him. I know you don't want to be here. I know you never asked for any of this. But I need you, Alex. You may not see it now, but you're the key to everything. Alex sighed, rubbing his temples. You keep saying that, but what does it really mean? I'm just a human. Why would I have anything special to offer? The princess set the device down with a soft click, her gaze never leaving his. That's the part you don't understand yet. You're not just any human. There's something about you, something unique. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. Something I've known from the moment I saw you. You can help me end this war. Help us end the chaos. Alex wasn't sure whether to believe her. Everything felt so unreal. She had captured him. She had kept him locked up. And now she expected him to trust her and help her save a planet he knew nothing about. But something in her eyes made him hesitate. He had seen that look before, the look of someone burdened with a responsibility far too heavy for them to bear. It was the same look he had seen in the eyes of his own comrades when they were forced to fight battles they didn't choose. All right, Alex said, his voice firm despite the uncertainty swirling inside him. I'll help you, but you have to tell me everything. Everything I need to know about this war, about this power, and about why you think I'm the one who can end it. The princess's eyes softened, a faint hint of relief flashing across her face. Thank you, she whispered, before turning back to the table. She picked up the device again, but this time, she held it out to him. This is the artifact, she said. It's the key to unlocking the power the prophecy spoke of. I spent years trying to decipher it. And now it's time for you to activate it. Alex stared at the device, an intricate piece of technology, unlike anything he had ever seen. It was covered in symbols he didn't understand, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. His fingers hesitated above it, unsure. Could he really do this? Could he unlock the power of the prophecy and change the course of an entire war? Take it, the princess urged, her voice soft but firm. This is our chance. Please, Alex, don't waste it. With a deep breath, Alex took the device. For the first time since he had arrived on this strange world, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he wasn't completely powerless in all of this. Maybe, just maybe, he had a part to play in something much bigger than he ever imagined. The weight of the device in Alex's hand felt strange. It wasn't heavy, but the way it pulsed with energy made him feel like he was holding something much more important than just a piece of alien technology. He glanced at the princess, whose eyes were filled with a quiet determination. There was no turning back now. He had made his choice. The future of her world, maybe even the galaxy, rested in his hands. "We need to move quickly," the princess said, breaking the silence. "The enemy has already started their attack on the capital. We can't afford to waste any more time." Alex nodded, steeling himself for whatever came next. He had no idea what this device would do or how it could help, but he trusted her. He had no other choice. His mission had changed from saving a princess to something far bigger. They weren't just trying to escape danger. They were on the front lines of a battle for the fate of an entire planet. The princess led the way, moving swiftly through the corridors of the ship. Alex followed closely behind, doing his best to stay alert. He had always been a soldier, trained to fight, to think on his feet, and to adapt to any situation. But nothing in his training had prepared him for this, fighting alongside an alien princess in a war he didn't fully understand. The stakes felt impossibly high. "We're almost there," the princess said as they approached a large, sealed door at the end of the hallway. She tapped a few symbols on the wall next to it, and the door slid open with a hiss, revealing a room filled with advanced machinery. Bright lights flickered as the systems powered up. "This is the control room," she explained. "It's where we'll activate the device and harness its power. But we're not alone. The enemy is already here. They've been tracking us." Alex tensed. He could hear the distant sound of footsteps, the unmistakable sound of enemy soldiers closing in. They didn't have much time. "Do you have a plan?" he asked, his voice low. The princess turned to him, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face for the first time. "I do, but I need you to trust me. I'll take care of the controls, but you need to hold off the soldiers." Alex took a deep breath. He wasn't sure what kind of fight they were in for, but if the princess believed in this device, then he would too. "All right, let's do it." Without another word, the princess moved to the central console, her fingers flying over the controls. Lights around them began to flash as the system came online. Alex moved into position, checking his weapon and scanning the room. He could hear the soldiers now, their voices growing louder as they neared the door. The tension in the room was thick. Every second felt like an eternity. Then, with a loud crash, the door to the control room was blasted open. A group of heavily armed soldiers stormed in, their weapons aimed directly at Alex and the princess. "Get down," Alex shouted, diving behind a nearby console for cover. The princess was already a step ahead, her own weapon raised as she fired back at the advancing soldiers. Alex's heart raced as he fired his own shots, covering the princess as she worked the controls. The soldiers were well trained, but Alex was faster, more unpredictable. He moved swiftly, taking down one of them with a well-placed shot. Another soldier took cover, returning fire, but Alex didn't hesitate. He kept moving, dodging and firing, making sure the princess could focus on the device. The battle raged on, the air filled with blaster fire and shouts of the soldiers. Alex's breath came in short gasps, but he didn't let up. He couldn't. The princess needed him, and this was his fight now. He was no longer just a soldier. He was part of something bigger. He was part of a mission that could change everything. Finally, with a hum that seemed to vibrate through the very walls, the device flared to life. The lights in the room flickered as energy coursed through the machinery. The soldiers, stunned by the sudden power surge, froze for just a moment. And in that moment, Alex took his chance, eliminating the last of them in one swift move. The princess stood, her eyes wide with both relief and exhaustion. "It's done," she said, her voice shaky but triumphant. "We've activated it. The power is ours." Alex lowered his weapon, his mind racing. The first step was complete, but what came next would be even more dangerous. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The mission was far from over. As the lights in the control room flickered and the last of the enemy soldiers fell, Alex felt the heavy weight of what they had just unlocked. The device, now glowing with a steady hum, had given them a powerful advantage. But the princess, despite the small victory, looked as though a new burden had settled on her shoulders. "We've done it, but we haven't won yet," she said, her voice soft, but filled with urgency. She turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the flickering lights from the device. Alex lowered his weapon, watching her closely. He could see the strain in her posture, the tightness in her jaw. She had been so focused, so determined to activate the device, but now that it was done, the reality of the situation seemed to hit her. There was something deeper at play here, something more than just saving her planet. "What happens now?" Alex asked, his voice serious. "The device is activated, but you said earlier that there's something I don't understand. What is it?" The princess hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. Finally, she walked over to a nearby console and typed a series of commands. A holographic map appeared in the air, showing various locations across her planet, blinking red in certain areas. Alex leaned in, trying to make sense of it. "There are multiple factions," she began, her fingers moving over the map. "Not just the enemy you've seen, but others, each one vying for control. My kingdom has been torn apart by political intrigue, betrayal, and violence. It's more than a war. It's a battle for survival, for the very soul of my people." Alex frowned. So all of this prophecy, the device, everything, was part of a bigger plan. The princess nodded, her eyes darkening. "Yes, but it's not just about power. There's something else. My family, my ancestors, they made a pact that was meant to protect our people, but it came with a price." "A price?" Alex repeated, his confusion growing. "What kind of price?" The princess took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly as she gestured to the map. "The prophecy isn't just about saving my kingdom. It's about preventing a catastrophe, a cataclysm that could destroy everything. My people, your people, everyone. The device you activated is only the first step. We need it to stabilize the core of our planet's energy system. But there's more." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He had known this mission was dangerous, but the weight of what the princess was saying suddenly felt much heavier. "And what happens if we don't do it? If we fail?" The princess met his gaze, her eyes filled with both determination and fear. "If we fail, the energy will destabilize. The planet will tear itself apart. The war will seem like nothing compared to the destruction that's coming. And you are the one who can stop it. You're the one who can unlock the final piece of the puzzle." Alex stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "You're telling me I'm supposed to save the world?" She nodded. "Yes, but not just by fighting. You have something inside you, something connected to the device, to the prophecy. I don't fully understand it, but I know that you are the key." The weight of her words hit him like a tidal wave. He had thought he was just a soldier, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now it seemed he had been chosen for something much bigger. But what if he wasn't up to the task? What if he couldn't live up to the impossible expectations she had for him? "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Why a human?" The princess stepped closer, her voice softening. "Because you're kind. You are different. Your spirit, your determination, your ability to fight when all hope seems lost. That's what we need. You have the power to do this. I believe in you." Alex felt a strange warmth spread through him at her words. It wasn't just the weight of responsibility that was pulling him forward now. It was something else, a desire to protect her people, and maybe even his own. He took a deep breath and nodded. "All right, I'll do whatever it takes." The princess gave him a small, grateful smile. "I knew you would, but we're running out of time. The final piece of the puzzle is hidden. We have to find it before it's too late." With that, the mission had taken a new turn. The stakes had never been higher. Alex wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting to save the future of two worlds. The air inside the command center was thick with tension. Alex and the princess had just come to terms with the gravity of their situation. The final piece of the prophecy, the key to saving both their worlds, was still out of reach. They had no time to waste. Every second mattered. And yet, as they prepared to continue their journey, a strange feeling of unease gnawed at Alex. The princess was focused, her attention entirely on the map displayed before her. She had activated another set of coordinates, signaling the location where the last part of the device was hidden. But something in her expression, something subtle, made Alex uneasy. "Are you sure about this?" Alex asked, his voice low. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The princess turned to him, her expression hard to read. "We have no choice. The location is safe, and we need the final piece to complete the device. We don't have time to waste." Alex nodded, but his instincts were screaming at him. There was something off about the way the princess spoke, something that didn't quite sit right with him. He had trusted her, followed her through every step of this mission, but he couldn't ignore the doubt that had started to creep into his mind. As they made their way to the hangar, preparing to board a small transport ship that would take them to the hidden location, Alex's eyes kept scanning the area. He was looking for anything out of the ordinary, any sign of danger. And then, as they neared the ship, he saw it, a small group of soldiers, hidden in the shadows. Before he could react, the princess turned to him, her eyes cold. "We're surrounded," she said, her voice calm. "It's time." Alex's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? We're surrounded by your own soldiers." The princess's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't the smile Alex had come to trust. It was cold, calculating. "You've been useful, Alex, but you were never meant to be a part of the prophecy. You were just a tool, a means to an end." The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. He took a step back, his mind reeling. "What are you saying? You used me?" The princess nodded. "Yes, you were the perfect pawn. I needed you to activate the device, to get us this far. But now my people are ready. You've outlived your usefulness." Alex couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had risked everything for her people, only to find out that it had all been a lie. The betrayal stung deep, cutting through the trust he had built in her. Before he could react, the soldiers closed in. They weren't there to protect him. They were there to capture him. He knew he couldn't fight them all. The princess had planned this carefully, and he had walked straight into her trap. The soldiers grabbed him, restraining him before he could make a move. His heart pounded in his chest, and he felt a mix of anger and disbelief. How had he been so blind? How had he not seen this coming? The princess stepped forward, her expression still unreadable. "You're not the only one who has been used, Alex," she said, her voice soft. "I've had my own burdens to bear. You were never meant to be my ally. But don't worry. You'll live. For now." Alex struggled against his captors, but they were too strong. His body was exhausted from the battles they had fought together. He had been played, used as a pawn in a game he didn't fully understand. And now he was at her mercy. The princess turned her back on him, signaling to the soldiers to take him away. "You'll be kept alive for now," she said coldly, "but don't expect any more chances. You were never the hero. You were just the tool that got me what I needed." As Alex was dragged away, he couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that twisted in his chest. The princess, the one he had trusted, had used him all along. But he wasn't done yet. He couldn't let this be the end. Somehow, someway, he would escape. He would make her pay for what she had done. He wasn't a pawn anymore. He was going to take control. Alex's mind raced as he was dragged through the dark corridors, his wrists bound tightly. Betrayed. Used. The princess, the woman he had trusted with his life, had set him up from the beginning. He had been a tool in her game, a pawn to help her unlock the power she needed. Now, locked in a cold cell, he had to find a way out. The soldiers had been careful, ensuring he couldn't escape, but they didn't know Alex. He had been trained for this, being trapped, being outnumbered. It was all part of the job. And no matter how dark it seemed, he wasn't going to give up. Not now. As the door to his cell slammed shut, Alex sat on the cold floor, taking slow, deep breaths. His mind went back to the princess, the look in her eyes when she revealed the truth. She had never been sincere. Her smile had been a mask, hiding the real plan all along. But something inside him refused to believe that was the end. She couldn't have just discarded him. There had to be more to it than that. Hours passed, and the silence in the cell became unbearable. But as he sat there, waiting for the inevitable, Alex heard footsteps outside the door. His heart skipped. Was this it? Was she coming to finish him off? The door creaked open, and Alex tensed, ready for whatever came next. But when he looked up, he wasn't expecting to see her standing there. The princess. Her eyes met his, and for the first time since their betrayal, there was no coldness, no mask, just a tired, pained look. She hesitated before stepping inside, closing the door behind her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Alex stood up, his hands still bound, his eyes never leaving hers. "I should have known," he said quietly, his voice low with anger. "You lied to me from the start." The princess lowered her gaze, guilt flickering in her eyes. "I never wanted it to be this way," she whispered. "But I had no choice. You were the key to everything." Alex's anger flared. "And what about me? What about everything I did to help you? I put my life on the line. And you used me like I was nothing." "I didn't want to," she replied, her voice shaky. "But you didn't understand. You couldn't. This isn't just about my people. It's about survival. My people, they're desperate. They've lost everything. I had to do what was necessary." Alex could see the torment in her eyes, but he wasn't ready to forgive her. Not yet. "You've played everyone. Me, your people, yourself." The princess's voice broke. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could control it. But when you activated the device, when it all started, I realized how deep this ran. The power, it's more than I ever imagined. If I didn't do this, it would destroy everything." Alex shook his head. "Then why didn't you just ask for help? Why betray me?" She stepped closer, reaching out to him. "Because I couldn't risk anyone else finding out. I couldn't risk losing everything again." For a moment, they stood in silence. The weight of her words hung in the air. Alex wasn't sure if he could ever fully trust her again, but something in him softened. There was more to this story than he had realized. She had been desperate, trapped in a situation with no easy way out. "You still have a chance to make this right," Alex said, his voice steady. "Help me get out of here, and we'll finish what we started. Together." The princess looked at him, a mixture of hope and fear in her eyes. "You'd still trust me, after everything I've done?" "I don't know," Alex replied honestly. "But if we don't stop this, if we don't finish what we started, everything will fall apart. For both of us." A long pause passed before the princess nodded, her face resolute. "All right, I'll help you. We'll stop this together." With that, the princess unlocked his cuffs, and they both turned to face the path ahead. It wouldn't be easy, but the mission was far from over. Betrayal had hurt, but it hadn't broken him. Together, they would face whatever came next, no matter how impossible it seemed. The next few hours felt like a blur to Alex. The princess had helped him escape, but the tension between them was thick. She had betrayed him, used him for her own purposes, and now they were in this together, whether they liked it or not. Despite the anger still bubbling inside him, Alex couldn't help but see the fear in her eyes. She was no longer the powerful leader he had once thought her to be. She was just as lost as he was, struggling to save her world from the collapse that loomed ahead. As they made their way through the corridors of the ship, the princess led with purpose, her steps quick and determined. Alex followed closely behind, his mind racing. What had she meant when she said they were both the key? And what was the final piece of the prophecy? These questions burned in his mind, but he didn't want to ask her yet. He didn't know if he could trust her completely. Finally, they reached a room that Alex hadn't seen before. It was much larger than the others, filled with old alien technology. The walls were covered with intricate symbols and maps, some glowing faintly. In the center of the room, a large pedestal stood, covered in dust. The princess walked straight to it, ignoring the unsettling silence in the room. "This is it," she said quietly, turning to face Alex. "The final piece." Alex stepped closer, eyeing the pedestal with suspicion. On it was an object, a crystal, glowing softly with an inner light. He didn't know why, but something about it felt familiar. It was as if he had seen it before, or perhaps it was a feeling that had been with him ever since the device had activated. The princess reached for the crystal, her hands trembling. "This crystal is the heart of the prophecy," she said, her voice soft. "It's the last piece I need to restore balance to my world. But I've been hiding the truth from you, Alex. I couldn't tell you everything before, but now I have to." Alex watched her closely, his eyes narrowing. "What truth?" The princess took a deep breath, clearly torn. "The device you activated, the one that gave us power, it was only the beginning. The crystal is the real power, the one that will change everything. But there's more. The prophecy isn't just about saving my people. It's about merging two worlds, the human world and mine." Alex frowned, his confusion growing. "Merging? What do you mean?" "I'm not just a princess," she said, her voice now trembling. "I'm the last of an ancient line that was meant to unite our worlds. My ancestors, your ancestors, they were connected long ago. Our worlds were once one, but something happened. We were torn apart. This crystal, it's the key to bringing them together again." Alex shook his head, trying to process what she was saying. "You're telling me our worlds were once one, and now you want to unite them?" The princess nodded, her gaze filled with both hope and desperation. "Yes, but it's not just a peaceful reunion. The merging will cause a massive shift, a great change that will affect both of our worlds. And you, Alex, you were the one who activated the device. You were the one who started the process. You're part of this. You're the one who can finish it." Alex felt his heart race. The gravity of what the princess was saying hit him all at once. He had been chosen for this. He had unknowingly played a part in something much bigger than he could ever imagine. He wasn't just caught up in a war. He was part of a prophecy, the catalyst for a world-changing event. "You're asking me to do this," Alex said slowly, his voice steady despite the chaos inside him. "To merge our worlds and risk everything, without knowing what might happen." The princess's eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw her vulnerability. "I know it's a lot to ask, but I have no choice. I can't do it alone. And neither can you." Alex took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was part of something far larger than anything he had ever known. "If we do this," he said, his voice firm, "we're doing it together. No more secrets." The princess nodded. Together. The room was silent, except for the hum of the crystal, which now pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. Alex stood next to the princess, both of them facing the pedestal. The weight of what they were about to do hung in the air. The fate of their worlds, the prophecy, and their own futures all rested on this moment. Alex glanced at the princess, his thoughts still racing. Everything had changed. He had gone from being a soldier, caught up in a conflict he didn't understand, to being part of something that could reshape entire worlds. It was a lot to take in. But in the end, he had no choice. The princess had been right. They were in this together, and whatever happened next, they had to face it side by side. "Are you ready?" the princess asked softly, her eyes filled with determination. She was no longer the same woman who had once betrayed him. The woman standing before him now was someone who had come to realize the enormity of her actions and the risks they both faced. Alex nodded. Ready as I'll ever be. With a steady breath, the princess reached forward and placed her hands gently around the glowing crystal. The moment her fingers touched it, a surge of energy filled the room. The ground beneath them seemed to tremble, and the walls around them began to glow with the same light that emanated from the crystal. Alex stepped back, feeling the power growing. The air around them crackled with energy, and he could feel the strange, magnetic pull of the crystal in his chest. It was as if the energy was calling to him, as if it was seeking something within him, something he had only just begun to understand. "This is it," the princess whispered, her voice filled with awe. The final step. Alex's heart raced as he stepped closer, his hand instinctively reaching toward the crystal. As his fingers brushed against it, a flash of light enveloped him, and the world seemed to blur around him. He could feel the connection between their two worlds, a deep, almost impossible link that stretched across time and space. The energy coursed through him, and for the first time, he understood what it all meant. Their worlds had once been one, connected by a force stronger than anything Alex had ever known. The prophecy wasn't just about a power or a device. It was about balance. The crystal, the device, everything. It had been leading them here, to this moment where the two worlds would finally be united. But that unity came with a price. The energy they had unlocked was powerful, and the shift would be unlike anything either world had ever experienced. The merging wouldn't be easy. There would be chaos, challenges, and loss. But there would also be hope, a new beginning. Alex turned to the princess, meeting her gaze. "Are you sure about this?" She smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "There's no turning back now, Alex, but we can make this work, together." He took a deep breath, his hand still resting on the crystal. He didn't know what the future would hold, but one thing was certain. This was their chance, a chance to save both their worlds, to bring about a new era. It was terrifying, but it was also the only choice they had. As the crystal's light grew brighter, the room filled with a deep, resonant hum. The connection between them, between their worlds, grew stronger, and in that moment, Alex knew that no matter what happened next, they had made the right choice. This was the beginning of something new, a new future, a new world. Together, they had unlocked the power of the prophecy. And now, they would face whatever came next as one.